The latest exit polls say former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on course for victory in the elections. The polls, which forecast the outcome before election results, gives his right-wing bloc a slim majority of seats over his opponents. Exit polls further suggest that Netanyahu's and right-wing bloc will command 61 or 62 of the Knesset's 120 seats. According to the polls, Netanyahu's Likud party stands to be the biggest party with 30 to 31 seats. However, a final result is not expected until later this week.
אנחנו עדיין צריכים לחכות לתוצאות האמת, אבל דבר אחד כבר ברור. הדרך שלנו, דרך הליכוד, הוכיחה את עצמה. אני מזכיר לכם שמ-52 מנדטים בבחירות האחרונות, אנחנו על סף ניצחון גדול מאוד.
According to projections, extreme right-wing leader Itamar Ben-Gvir will be key in helping Netanyahu return to power, with his religious Zionism bloc on track for an estimated of 14 seats. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid stopped short of conceding Tuesday's elections and said that he will wait until final results were announced.
אין לנו שום כוונות לעצור, אין לנו שום כוונות להפסיק. כל אזרח ישראלי, דתי או חילוני, שמאלני או ימני, יהודי או ערבי, סטרייט או להט"בי, צריך לדעת הלילה שאנחנו נמשיך להילחם כדי שישראל תהיה מדינה יהודית ודמוקרטית, ליברלית ומתקדמת.
Now, Palestinians have expressed disappointment in the Israeli elections as the exit polls showed Netanyahu well placed to return to power.
ما بعنيش شيء يعني نتنياهو جربناه في السابق وجربنا لبيد يعير الاثنين يعني بتنافسوا بالاجرام على الشعب الفلسطيني دائما بداياتهم الانتخابيه بتبقى على حساب الدم الفلسطيني يعني ما بيفيدونا بشيء بالعكس بيضرونا يعني الاثنين احنا دمنا مقياس لهم لنجاحاتهم دم الفلسطيني.
Now for more on this, we are being joined by our correspondent Jody Cohen from Renana. Jody, my first question to you is Netanyahu's comeback entirely depends on his fellow right-wing parties. Do you think he will be able to convince everyone to team up?
I don't see that being a problem for him. He would be looking, of course, to join in a coalition with the ultra-nationalist parties and the ultra-Orthodox parties as well, who've been consistent in their support for him throughout this campaign. What isn't clear is whether or not he might want to try and convince a more centrist party perhaps to join the coalition, perhaps if he wanted to get more seats in his coalition. And in that way, he might be able to lessen the influence, for example, of the ultra-nationalists in this coalition. I don't see that being a problem, but I think it really is important right now to say that even though the exit polls and the updated polls that have been published since then, most recently with 60% of the votes counted, they're all suggesting a win for Netanyahu. It is also really important to say that not all of the votes have been counted yet, and that there are three parties on the cusp of whether or not they will cross the threshold. Now, if they cross the threshold, then that could actually tip the balance of the final results. As I say, the polls are indicating right now a win for Netanyahu, but it's not a done deal. We could still end up in a situation with a deadlock between Likud and his coalition and Yair Lapid, Yesh Atid, and his potential coalition. There have also, I would say, been examples in the past of voters being told in the exit polls one results, and then by the time the official results come out, the results have changed. So, for example, in 1996, voters went to bed being told that Shimon Peres was the prime minister, and they woke up to Benjamin Netanyahu at that election. So it's still not confirmed. It is looking likely to be Netanyahu, and if that's the case, he shouldn't have a problem getting his allies into a coalition with him, but it remains to be seen.
Absolutely. Now, Netanyahu is in the middle of massive corruption charges, as we have been discussing. Still, the people have chosen him. Why do you think that's the case?
Right, so he won the most seats in the last election as well. And again, as expected in this election, regardless of the final results, we do know that he won more seats than any other party. I think the corruption charges have been built into those results. That was what was expected. And that's because his supporters really believe that these charges are a witch hunt against him. They feel that the charges are minor. For example, they would say that the charge of trying to get media coverage, positive media coverage, is something that all politicians do and isn't a crime. There's also quite a consensus in this country, not just across the right wing, but some of the centrist parties too, that in this country, you've got the balance of power between the judiciary and the parliament. And there is a feeling that the balance of power has somewhat tipped too far in favour of the judiciary. So there is a big desire to see that sort of balance redressed. Although, of course, critics would argue that that's undemocratic, and they would say the opposite, that the judiciary needs to have more influence than the parliament. Obviously, you could argue it the other way as well, that it's more democratic for Parliament to have more of the balance of power because they are voted by the people. So that's really that issue. But yes, regardless of these corruption charges, Likud supporters are saying, innocent until proven guilty, and it remains to be seen what will happen with those charges.
Right now, you were at Yair Lapid's election event last night. Can you describe the mood there?
So interestingly, Yesh Atid actually kept their activists away from the media. I presume they were in a separate room or they were coming later on. But Lapid is a former news anchor himself, so he's very media savvy. And by keeping the activists away from the media, he was able to certainly better control the message and the images coming out of that election event. And the leader spoke at around 3 o'clock in the morning, and the message from Lapid was really, he didn't concede defeat. He's saying wait and see, wait until all the votes are counted. He also talked about there being record levels of support in this election for Yesh Atid. Now, also interestingly, there have been some anonymous members of his campaign team who have criticised his handling of the campaign, saying that he didn't offer enough support to the smaller parties to help them get through to the bloc. But again, as I said, we need to wait until the final votes are counted to see whether it's deadlock or whether, as expected, Netanyahu will return as prime minister if he's able to form a coalition, which is looking likely.
All right. Thank you for all those insights, Jody. We will be coming back to you for the latest.
Thank you.